So
Now, I think now is a good time because you mentioned 1,100 grams for your quad. I think it's a good time to talk about your gear and like what. So you said 1,100 grams all up. That's pretty heavy. Why is it so
Yeah,
heavy?
that's my ship. Because I took a slightly different approach in that I'm going with the kind of big block motor approach. So
Gotcha.
if you notice the motors on here, they look kind of old school.
Now, what are they?
You know, compared to something more modern here. This is a 2506 Gargila or Gorilla, whatever they call them. These are some. They're actually the brand name was Mystery, if you remember them, and they are.
I don't.
They're 2215, 2900 kVs.
2215. Interesting. 2,900 kV. 2215. That's narrower and taller. That's like two 2207s stacked on top of each other,
Yes,
more or less.
high kV too. I benched them and they come in just over 3000 kV, so they're pretty good with that, and they have less pole counts than your typical quad motor does, which is 14 poles. These are I think these are 8 pole, so I have 4 pole pairs on them, so it keeps the ERPM down. And number of poles actually comes into play on the electrical side because we're trying to spin these motors, close to 40,000 RPMs for a 5-inch prop.
Right. So the more poles it has, the more ERPM there are, and the more the ESC has to struggle to drive it. Is that what you're getting at?
That, and you also have higher losses on the motor side.
Well, don't stop there. I'm all ears. Tell us about that.
I'm going to have to try and bring back some of my memory on motor theory here. So,
this is why people tune into the channel. No, they want to know.
So, double check me on this if you're listening to this, because I'm a bit rusty. So, one of the primary issues that you're going to have is core losses. So, you're going to have your induced magnetic fields that are going to be building up, which create eddy currents. So the faster you spin it, the higher those are going to happen at. Now, you can minimize some of that with thinner laminations in the stator, but for the most part, for the speeds these motors are going, I don't really see that as being an issue. I actually don't know how much of an effect something like this would have if it was a 14 pole versus being the 8 pole that I'm running now. I just know in general, less poles is good for when you're trying to run high speed.
Okay.
Because you're going to end up with lower overall losses. And the higher kV, one of the reasons to run the higher kV is you end up with lower resistance going into the motor, so you can try and get more current into it at those higher RPMs as well.
And what do you give up for that high speed? Because it seems like you've got a very heavy quad, you've got massive motors. How are you? I mean, if we were to just take those motors and stick them on a typical mini quad, you wouldn't get good flight performance. So how are you making up the difference of that additional weight? Is that you're running 5-inch props, right?
On this right now, yes. I'm currently on 5. Due to tip speeds on the props, I'm going to experiment with cutting them down a little bit, going down in probably like 1/4-inch increments to see what happens to the speed.
So you've got an 1,100 gram quad, which is roughly twice the weight of what most of us are running. You've got these motors that are twice as big as what most of us are running. Your props are the same size. It seems like the thing should just fly like a pig and not go very fast. Why is that not true?
Well, for top speed, compared to like a race quad, it is going to handle like a pig. Like I have a bunch of lightweight tube frames that I've built, and they're very quick. Very nimble, very responsive. I can actually still do freestyle on this. I'm not doing FPV for it freestyle. So a lot of times when I'm testing just line of sight, I'll just pop it up and I'll start doing flips, rolls, and yaw spins. And
the thought of that thing doing a roll when it's like this long, and I guess if you're at like 90 degrees up tilt, I guess a roll is, I don't even know. Like a roll is actually spinning in a flat circle. I don't know. Do you use...
still when it's in the vertical position, it flies just like a quad. It's like normal. So nothing unique there. But
I guess you have your camera angled towards the nose, right? It's like got 90 degrees up tilt. What's your camera angle?
I'm at 55. I don't know if you can see that there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's about what I put mine at too.
Wow.
And then use a wide angle lens.
I got
but,
you.
You wouldn't want to be around trees with this. First of all, it's 3D printed plastic.
It
It's
will
only
break.
1 millimeter thick. So you clip anything, you're done.
Yeah.
And then on the insides here, I have a 6 millimeter carbon fiber tube to reinforce the spars.
I guess the main question, two questions that we haven't discussed about your gear is what battery do you run? 4S, how big?
I was running a Tattoo R-Line, one of the square packs, the 1300s. And in addition, I paralleled a Turnigy Graphene 1000 4S with it. So I had 2,300 milliamp hours.
And then what props do you run?
I was running the APC 4.6 by 5 and also APC the 5.2 by 6.
Yeah. Those APC props are often overlooked by racing and freestyle pilots, but for top speed runs, they're actually pretty ideal, aren't they?
They are good for top speed runs. They don't have good grip or good acceleration
Right.
on a regular quad, because I've put them on my regular quads and flown them around, and they feel quite mushy.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have much pickup. You're not going to get much punch out of them, but they definitely do the top speed. I've put them on quads where I had a GPS on it, and just changing the prop, I went from a top speed of like 90 to a top speed of like 108.
Yeah. Nice. Now, Ryan, I want to talk about your gear as well, because you're flying a little bit different gear than Jeremy. And I especially want to give you a chance to talk about your frame, because these frames that I'm seeing behind you on the wall, you actually sent me one to check out. It's a really cool design, and you sell this frame not just for top speed runs, but just as a regular racing and freestyle frame. Is that right?
Yeah, but I'm not selling it anymore because, as you know, there is a slight tuning issue with it.
So let's see if we can. Let me step away and get it, and we can take a close look. Hold on. All right. So here it is. I'll hold it up to the camera so people can see. It's got vertical arms, which is it's not a new idea. Carrera does vertical arms. A few other people do, but this is a really unique design compared to what I've seen other people do.
And that's basically the frame that I went 203 with it, but the average speed is about 178, not quite 180. And I've actually got the next prototype right here, which Kebab FPV.
Yeah.
He flew a prototype like this back in May, and this one, it has more tension on the arm. I never flew it, but when he flew it, it flew fine on Betaflight defaults. So
yeah, you ran into an issue. You sold this frame for a while, and the way that the vertical arms cause it, I don't know, it didn't do well on the default Betaflight tune, did it?
No. But I mean, there are people out there that love it, the way that they fly it. But if people can't get it tuned, I'm not going to be selling it.
Yeah.
It needs.
What was the issue? What issue did they run into?
It's like prop wash or whatever. It always seemed like a mid throttle prop wash issue. And
it has. Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually have Joe Lucid. He's got a frame. He's playing around with it. See what he can do with it. With fantastic filtering and everything. But another one thing about this frame versus the one that you've got, it's still a pain in the ass to try and change an arm.
An arm, yeah, because you've got the arms are held in between two plates, and I see that you basically would have to loosen up the entire bottom plate, at which point all the arms you're not going to try to change fall out, right?
Right. And then, but this one here, I was able to get it so you can remove just one motor screw and loosen up just one center plate screw, and you're done. I mean, I changed an arm yesterday in like 70 seconds.
And the difference between this frame and the frames that most of us and the Betaflight devs are flying is this one is really stiff on the pitch and roll axis, but relatively flexy on the yaw axis, which means that the expectations of the filters and the PIDs are just completely subverted. I was really disappointed to hear you sent me an email and told me that you were basically pulling this one off the market, and I thought to myself, why? It's such a cool idea, but I didn't think of the fact that no matter how good a frame can fly, if people can't just put Betaflight on it or CleanFlight on it and have it fly good, a lot of people are going to blame you and not say, oh, well, I need to put in hours of tuning in order to get it to fly right. So I'm glad to hear you're coming out with an updated version that hopefully will be a little more
this
widely.
one's looking really good, and plus it's even lighter, about 5 grams.
How much does it weigh?
Lighter.
How much does it weigh?
So, what's that?
What's it weigh?
This one's more like a line of sight version. This one's only 26 grams, and but I'd say final one between 35 to 37 grams. And if you get the beefier 2mm arm version, probably about 40 to 42 grams.
That's respectable.
And
so
they
let's talk
fly
about
phenomenally.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly not a lot of drag. That's for sure.
Yeah, I haven't. Now, he was mentioning about running into issues. I have a previous version of the same frame that he sent me, and I played with it. I averaged it on video between 2 telephone poles. I had GPS on as well, but I didn't have good lock, and that was going like 140, and that thing was so responsive. I had no Propwash issues on mine, so I don't know if there's a resonance issue that's happening, but overall, once the frame is dialed in, the thing flies really nice.
Yeah, it could be a choice of motors, all the equipment. Who knows?
Yeah. So what is your setup when you're doing speed runs, Ryan? We heard about Jeremy's setup. What's your typical setup? What motors, props, what's your all-up weight, etc.?
I mean, it's pretty basic. Anybody that knows me knows that I love the Cobra motors, the 2207, 2450s. I'm also going to give the 2600s a try.
Yeah.
And I just, I go over to Mini Quad Test Bench, go through the numbers. I even made an article on it and just looking at everything. It's still a little bit gray there, but I still like these motors the best. And I haven't seen anything that compares in efficiency.
I'm trying to get him to try bigger motors.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised that you're not running something like a T-Motor F80. Like, why aren't you running a much bigger motor?
Now, I don't know about this, but okay, I don't even know where I've got those motors, the F80s. When I went to do the speed runs, for Guinness in Arizona, I had one of these frames with the F80s on it. They were 2200s, but still, not far behind the 2450s. And all I did was just do a few punch outs, and compared to these, I mean, it was so sluggish. I thought there was something wrong. I went over it, and I mean, it was way more sluggish. And then
by the way, can I clarify? Can I clarify? Are you running 6S?
Yeah.
Okay, you said 2400 kV, and I thought, oh well, that's just a normal motor. But and then you said 2200, and I was like, wait, something's not right here. You're on 6S. Okay, so you were saying the F80s were a lot more sluggish, and you thought something was wrong.
Yeah. And then just to make sure, I put the Cobras on that same frame, didn't touch anything, and it's like night and day. It was like a 5S versus 6S.
Do you think that, let me throw something out, because now I'm curious. I'm like, what could be going on here? Let me throw out that neither motor was anywhere close to overpropped. So the F80, the additional torque that you were getting from the F80 wasn't really helping you. And it was 2200 kV, so it was a lower kV motor, so it was simply making less thrust. Could you have maybe propped up? What prop do you run?
APC 5.2 by 6.
5.2 by. Go ahead.
Yeah, and we actually did some bench testing. I can't remember the exact results, but thrust-wise, the F80 was the winner. But
Right.
and I can't. I know I had good reasons, but I still went with Cobra due to other factors. And,
I'm curious. Have you tried maybe like a higher KV version of the F80?
No, I haven't yet.
I don't know. I'm not picking on the F80. I just think it's really interesting. I think everyone in the world would probably assume that if you take the exact same quad, you take some 2206 Cobras off of it and you put some F80s on it, that it'll go much faster. So the fact that didn't happen for you is really intriguing.
Yeah. I'm not saying if I put the 2500s on there,
Maybe
it might be just as good.
I guarantee you someone from T-Motor is wondering what your address is right this minute. Anyway. Okay. So, and what's your all-up weight for that guy?
What was I guessing this one out to be? It's going to be probably under 600.
So more typical.
I'm just using an R-Line 6S. I don't even know where I put the bed. Oh, it's inside here. But it was an R-Line.
Okay.
I just had to reconfigure it differently.
Okay.
It's a 1300. So nothing crazy. But when I did the speed record run, that was just a nanotech.
Oh my God, are you serious? You're killing me right now. A Turnigy nanotech went 190 miles an hour?
Yeah, 15, whatever. It's that odd long one, and that was my practice one. But time was so short, after that practice run, I could not throw in my R-Line.
Listen, you got to lie. You just have to lie and say it was an R-Line. You can't, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Be honest. But seriously. So here's the thing that I want to know. I want to hear now. You just told me you have a 600-ish gram 6S quad with Cobra 2400 kV motors. Okay, you're running 6S on 2400 kV, which is a little more than most of us do. But I guarantee you, if I take my 2400 kV quad, even if a racing quad, and I put 6S on it, it's not going to go 190 miles an hour. And we talked about aerodynamics. Is aerodynamics making up the difference? Is that all that the difference is? Or what else is there that makes your pretty average quad?
I mean,
it's all aerodynamics.
Yeah. I mean, the Guinness run, that was SpedX 30 amp ESCs. And
I'm not surprised about the ESCs.
Yeah.
The more efficient you are, you don't need fancy ESCs.
Right.
What about PID tuning? Because you mentioned something in your email about, like, if the PID tune isn't right, then the motors will kind of be fighting and you'll lose top end power. What about PID tuning? Does that come in?
Yeah, see, I typically use like really low D values, but I don't think that makes a difference because I jacked up my D values when I hit 203 on the production frame, and I mean it was a little shaky. I don't know if you saw the video with the 6S. It was shaky, but I mean it was moving.
Yeah.
So I do remember though, and I think it was due to the arms. These are only 1.5 millimeter by 4.5 millimeter arms. And I remember I had to turn down the D values because as soon as I started it up, it would just, do the skyrocket to the moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I couldn't even start it up. I'm a wimp, and I normally start with an angle mode on my quads and land in angle mode.
Well, with 55 degrees of up tilt, I think you get a pass on that one, especially because your quads are more fragile because they're so lightweight. You don't have the option to just go blah and dump it into the ground.
Right.
So
exactly.
I think we'll give you a pass on that one.
Yeah. It takes a while to get that technique going, but yeah, it works well. But I couldn't even take off in angle because as soon as you turned it on, it wanted to right itself so quickly it would just kind of go crazy.
Yeah. So you basically fly default PIDs. You maybe turn the D gain down a little bit and just go. Is that right?
Yeah. D down. I mean, I would turn everything down about the I and the P about 30%.
Okay.